3,000 years ago we encountered the humans. They lived on a planet named Earth. We harvested 20,000 of them, they made good slave labor, and so every 500 years we would return to take a few thousand more. However, the last time we went to harvest, unspeakable horrors awaited our return. The humans had figured out that the disappearances they faced was largely due to an intergalactic federation, and since humans did not have rights according to our government, they became one of the many species that were collected from around the universe to fill labor demands for our civilization's expansion. That was until those sent to harvest more witnessed the humans detonating thermonuclear weapons. Several thousand humans were taken at the time from numerous conflict areas. We doubted they would notice given their many ongoing wars. We returned to our capital and passed the information along. Earth was becoming dangerous, and it might soon be necessary to take military action. We had no idea that while this was occurring, we were becoming the observed, the hunted. And so the next time we returned we brought with us a warship to combat any human aggression. We had dropped out of FTL for only a few moments when an object, human-made, and gigantic in proportion to our ships quickly blocked out the stars in our view. Our ship was able to evade, but the rest of the fleet including the warship were smashed like drops of rain against an iron wall. The computers on our ship cracked and a voice, calm, and sounding slightly amused broke through the buzz of alarms going off. "We have been waiting to collect your debt." Confused, I asked. "What debt?" The reply was as much a declaration of war as it was also a reckoning. "We the humans. We know you've taken thousands of us through the ages, therefore, we will forgive in exchange for 400 million of your species as slave labor. Roughly 1,000 of yours for every human taken." At this moment the colossal human ship, now still in space, turned, and thousands of iron doors opened along its surface. Sensors detected weapons of every imaginable type and some that were beyond comprehension. The voice of the human commander spoke with a cold edge. "Go now and tell your kings, your emperor, your gods, and have 400 million of your brothers and sisters waiting in need rows along your planet's equator and poles in 1 month from now. Or we will burn your galactic empire down. We will deconstruct your genetics, drop viral bombs, and turn your species into our food. You really messed with the wrong planet."
Part 2. After the human commander had stated his demands, a ghostly silence could be felt through the bridge of our ship. The alarm still rang in the air, breaking the silence, as chunks of what was our fleet floated like dust in space. The sun and stars still invisible behind the gigantic human vessel. Some of my fellow officers cried in hysteria, others slumped to the floor. As reality came crashing upon me, I felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the thought of 400 million of my people. My neighbors, family, friends, all to be taken to repay a debt that the scientists and royalty of our civilization had invariantly created. The dizziness I felt turned into nausea, and a primordial feeling that rendered me frozen with fear. One of our navigators frantically entered coordinates. Our ship's commander in a broken scream yelled, "Get us anywhere but here." The engines roared to life, the structure of our ship hummed and creaked under the stress of the power needed for hyperspace travel. The stars came back into view as we hurried from the human system. In eerie silence our ship dropped out of FTL at one of our nearby outposts. As our report echoed through the many layers of our governments, military and discussed in Ling on broadcasts. Very little time was left. Nearly a human month had passed. Many did not believe that the humans would be so bold to come here themselves. Others simply stated that the humans have no rights within the galactic order, ignoring their demands. Many of the military and nobles felt that we should simply exterminate their planet with an antimatter bomb. These many rulers and governments, and worlds had millions of years of history. Between each other and their species, their technology was advanced enough to maintain a quality of life that they felt met their needs. And primitive alien worlds such as Earth had been easily dealt with for thousands of years as farms for sentient slaves. But the balance of this order was about to shift. Everyone in the Galactic Empire would remember that day. Where they were. What they were doing. When the human vessel dropped out of FTL above the planet's surface. Everyone on the capital planet, as well as the neighboring worlds were left in awe and fear. The human vessel was the size of a small moon. Out of it came several dozen smaller ships that were mountain-sized, and from each came hundreds of other ships. Some looked bulky for transports, other looked like Goliath-sized weapons mounted onto engines. For the next 2 days the human vessels took on a uniform orbit around our planet, their largest ship drifting alongside our moon. They did not shoot. Even as many of our ships departed the surface to take up defensive positions, they maintained theirs. It reminded me of why they were here. We took humans as slaves for thousands of years. Even though they didn't know us. Never hurt us. We still enslaved generations of humans for entertainment and research. And now it would seem those roles were to be reversed.
Part 3. The billions of aliens living on the world below were buzzing with anxiety. Panic and fear over the massive human ships looming in orbit. This was a sharp contrast to the quiet anticipation among the human vessels. The calm silence that was only broken by the commander's voice. We gave them time to gather 400 million alien slaves to take back with us, but this was a lie we told them to distract from our true purpose for being here. You all have your coordinates, and drop zones. I want every one of their human slaves and our descendants on board by the end of the day. Eliminate any threats with absolute prejudice. And just like that, the human vessels fell like stars towards cities, slave settlements, and recherche facilities holding their human brethren in captivity. The few alien ships that fired upon the human vessels were met with a swift destruction. Some human vessels simply rammed their way through alien ships and buildings. The iron human vessels resembled mountains of industrial might, and crushed their fragile alien silicone counterparts. The aliens were frantic, some used human slaves as shields. And some lit their slaves on fire. Others realized crowds of human prisoners trying to avoid the incoming wrath. This continued planet-wide for hours. We have evacuated all human prisoners. No further human life signs detected on the surface, Commander. All ships are now returning to orbit. But sir, it's worse than we thought. Minutes later the commander entered one of the many med bays that were overflowing with malnourished, butchered, and modified humans. In all his years of war, he had never seen more pain and suffering than what he witnessed in that med bay. The screams of thousands of emotions and horrors filled the air like a perpetual note. The commander's eyes were met by stare of a young girl laying on one of the tables, no older than 15. Every part of her was covered in scars, infected wires hung out of her abdomen, and bolts of metal protruded from her neck. Her arms had been removed and reattached to her hips. The commander gasped in shock, but this was nothing compared to what he saw next. What looked like a pile of bodies was dozens of humans fused together, mostly without limbs, and some without heads, in an indescribably cruel display of alien human flesh engineering. The commander left and returned to the helm of the ship to give his orders. By now you've seen what this world has done and what it's taken. Burn it, burn them all.